I walked downstairs, still wearing the lace robe my mom had given me years ago. Soft, delicate, the last thing of hers that still smelled faintly of her perfume. My dad's eyes lifted from the couch. For a moment his gaze lingered, not in a way that made me uncomfortable, but in that quiet, unreadable way grief makes people pause, as if time itself had forgotten to keep moving. The candles on the mantel flickered. The smell of lavender oil drifted through the air, one of the few scents that could still calm him. He'd been using it since Mom's funeral. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. The house felt full and empty at once. Before we begin, I want to warn you. This story explores grief, emotional confusion, and the strange ways families fall apart and find their way back. It isn't about forbidden love. It's about the fragility of connection, the quiet weight of loss, and how loneliness can make people forget where the lines are. When I was little, my dad used to laugh a lot. His name is Murphy Barker, and back then, he had a laugh that could fill every room. He used to whistle when he cooked, play old rock songs from a playlist he refused to update, and dance with my mom in the kitchen until both of them were out of breath. I'd sit on the counter, clapping, watching them move like the world outside didn't exist. He'd read me bedtime stories, always changing the endings to make them funnier. Sometimes he'd draw little stick figures on my napkins before packing my lunch. We were happy, real, messy, ordinary happiness. Until Mom got sick. It started as tiredness, then tests, then treatments that never seemed to end. A year later she was gone. I was 10. After that, our house changed. The light seemed dimmer. The music stopped. Even the air felt heavier, as if it remembered what it had lost. Dad stopped laughing. He didn't cry in front of me, but I could hear it through the walls sometimes, late at night, when he thought I was asleep. He tried to keep going. Made breakfast. Went to work. Folded my laundry like nothing had changed. But everything had. He became quieter, distant, a man trying to survive his own silence. When I hit my teens, I learned how to fill the silence. I joined clubs, sports, debate, cheer. Anything that kept me away from home. My schedule was full to the edge, so full I barely had time to breathe. And that was the point. I didn't want to feel. By 19, I looked like the girl who had everything together. Straight A's, college offers, a social life that looked perfect from the outside. But inside, I was running on empty. And Dad, he was worse. He stopped going out entirely. Worked from home. Wore the same gray sweatpants most days. Ate whatever I reminded him to eat. He didn't date. Didn't smile. Didn't live. We existed under the same roof but on different planets. Then one night something shifted. I'd just come home from a long practice, muscles aching, brain fried. I dropped onto the couch, half asleep, trying to untie my sneakers. I groaned without thinking. Dad looked up from his laptop. "You okay?" he asked softly. His voice startled me. I hadn't heard him speak like that in months. I shrugged. "Just sore." He hesitated, then said, "You want me to help? I can rub your shoulders. I used to do that for your mom when her back hurt." It was a simple offer. A human one. I nodded. He sat beside me and started rubbing gently. The way someone does when they're unsure if they remember how. His hands were warm, careful. And for the first time in years I felt connected. Not just comforted, seen. It wasn't about anything strange. It was about presence. For 10 minutes, we weren't broken pieces of a family. We were just two people who remembered what touch felt like, what care felt like. The next few days felt lighter. We talked more about small things like groceries, work, my classes. And then after another exhausting day he asked again, "Shoulders?" I said yes. It became a quiet ritual. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. After practice or dinner, he'd use lavender oil, said it helped muscles relax. Sometimes he'd light a candle, or play soft instrumental music, the kind Mom used to play during storms. It was healing at first. A strange sort of therapy neither of us talked about. But with grief, nothing stays simple. Over the next few weeks, I began to notice something deeper happening. Not inappropriate, but emotional. He started asking more questions. "Are you eating enough? Are you getting enough rest? Do you have anyone to talk to?" And I'd answer half-heartedly. But beneath his words, I could feel the loneliness pressing against mine. One night, after a long silence, he said, "You remind me of her sometimes." I didn't ask who he meant. I knew. The air in the room felt heavier. He stopped talking, but the sadness stayed, thick between us. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how easy it was to forget we were both still grieving, separately, silently, for the same person. I thought grief was supposed to fade. But instead it grows roots. We'd both become so good at pretending to be fine that we forgot how to be real with each other. Weeks turned into months. The massages became less about soreness and more about routine. An excuse to share quiet moments we didn't know how to ask for otherwise. Sometimes he'd tell me stories about Mom. The way she used to hum while washing dishes, how she always forgot her keys, how she made him promise to keep smiling after she was gone. He said it like he'd broken that promise. One night after he finished, I looked at him and said, "You should go out more." He smiled faintly. "What for? The world feels smaller now." "You can't just disappear," I said. He looked at me for a long time. "Sometimes that's the only thing I know how to do." And for the first time, I saw him not as my father, but as a man. Not in a romantic way, but as someone broken, scared, human. As time passed, our emotional dependency grew. I stopped hanging out with friends as much. He stopped working late. We began having dinner together again. Talking. Laughing, even. It was strange how something as simple as attention could rebuild walls that had fallen years ago. But there was also guilt. Because every time we laughed, I could see the shadow of my mom in the corner of my mind. The reminder that we were trying to fill a space that wasn't meant to be filled by each other. One rainy night, the power went out. We sat together in the candlelight, wrapped in silence. "I miss her every day," he said. "I know," I whispered. He looked at me with tired eyes. "You're all I have left, save." "I know." And for a long time, neither of us spoke again. In the weeks that followed, I started journaling everything, trying to understand why this grief still had claws in me. I realized something. We weren't healing. We were holding each other up just enough not to fall apart. We were using comfort as a shield against the pain. And that kind of comfort, no matter how innocent, can start to blur the line between love and need. It took time, but I eventually moved out for college. I called him every week. Sometimes he sounded better. Sometimes not. But every call ended the same way. "I'm proud of you. I love you." He never said it lightly. Years later, when I look back, I realize our story wasn't about crossing boundaries. It was about learning them. About realizing that grief doesn't end. It just changes shape. We were two people standing in the ruins of our family, learning how to rebuild without losing ourselves again. And maybe that's what love really is. Not the warmth that replaces pain, but the strength that helps you face it. If you've ever lost someone, you know, it's not the death that haunts you. It's the silence that follows. Sometimes, all we need is someone who stays, even when they don't know how. This story isn't about forbidden love. It's about finding humanity again, in the middle of grief, guilt, and the quiet spaces in between.